Hi, welcome to Finding Your Cup podcast. We are so excited today to have Stacy Schaefer with us. She is the founder and executive director of 318 Project. Also, it's going to be fun today because Kirsten and I, it will be our first dual interview.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be passing the microphone back and forth as we learn more about 318 Project and their wonderful mission.
Yes. And thank you guys for having me here with you today. I feel like we have talked so much over the years, but like to get to this point, here we are. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, because you've been coming. I mean, you've been coming in here since we opened too. So it's nice to like really sit down and talk, I guess.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just so Stacy here can explain a little more about what this is all about and stuff. I mean, just to start out, can you just like tell us? Because even like me, I want to know more about this too. Because you guys have been able to connect a little bit more.
Sure.
But yeah, so just tell us kind of about the history, how it got started, like the vision that you guys have for it. Yeah, if you could just tell us.
So I started my work in the anti-human trafficking movement in 2006. So at that time, I was an undergrad and I had a professor say to me, if we go to this guest speaker, we can get extra credit. I liked extra credit.
Oh, yeah.
And went to this guest speaker and he was talking about human trafficking, also known as modern day slavery. So I just felt something in my heart calling me to do something. Didn't know what that was going to be, but it led me over to Guatemala where I experienced my first case of human trafficking with a little girl named Anna. Now, how we see trafficking in other countries is not how we typically see it here in the United States. In Anna's case, she was kidnapped from El Salvador and taken to a brothel in Guatemala. In the US, about 1% of our cases are kidnapping related. Otherwise, that's not as common as it is in underdeveloped countries. But it was through that case where I was partnering with an organization at that time. They had received a tip that this little girl was in this brothel, and we were able to intervene and bring her back to the shelter and provide her with services. So Anna's always been my inspiration and why behind this work, and is why I started 318 Project in her honor. And it comes from Proverbs 31:8, speak up for those who can't speak for themselves.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Sorry, I actually have one more question too, because it was interesting because this past summer, my family and I took a big road trip across the country to the West Coast. And I was kind of surprised. Well, I was surprised, not surprised, but I guess it's something we don't see here a lot. But in almost every like gas station where we stopped, there were signs all over about human trafficking. Like if you see something, call this number, or specifically speaking to victims, like if there's any way they could make a signal that they were in trouble. And I guess if you could speak into that a little bit more, because I that is maybe happening, do you think, on like the western part of our state in oil country, or I don't know. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes. Trafficking definitely happens across the state. The oil boom back in 2013, that definitely, I think it made us more aware because it was so visible, like you could see it.
Yeah.
People identified it as, oh, that's prostitution, not recognizing that out of the cases we work in North Dakota, 99% of people have been chosen prostitution. They've been forced into it.
Yeah.
And nationally, it's around 90% to 10%. So just recognizing, people aren't choosing this. There's something else bigger behind it.
Yeah.
But where it's gotten complicated is a lot of it's moved online or familial trafficking, where the family member is the trafficker. So that's actually one of the more common types of trafficking that we now see in the state, which makes it almost more hidden because you're not seeing it in plain sight.
Yeah.
Sorry, that is actually shocking to me. In our state, familial trafficking is happening quite often.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's way more common than people think.
Yeah.
That's why even when we talk to youth about this and, we talk about trusted adults, we remind them that it might not be your parent that's the trusted adult. It might be your friend's parent, right?
Yes.
Getting them to understand that we recognize that these scenarios are happening at home and there's still people out there that want to help you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, kind of like talking about that, how you were saying in Guatemala, how different it is.
Yes.
Could you give some statistics for like, I don't know, kind of to give us a better picture, like maybe comparatively to like other nations, or I don't know, even other states and stuff, like some stuff for North Dakota and America.
Yeah. I think what's unique about North Dakota is that we border other states as well as another country. Not that movement has to be a part of human trafficking, but it can be. And so we're positioned for that to happen. The other unique thing about North Dakota is we're geographically large. So we don't have the highest population, but it makes it difficult to adequately patrol. So, for example, one of our reservations alone in the state is the same size as Rhode Island and has around 10 BIA agents. So when you think about that, you know, how do you adequately control crime?
Right.
And so those are some of the reasons we see this increasing. The other thing is demand. There is a demand, believe it or not, in our state for people to purchase other people for sexual acts. But again, we don't have the highest population. So a sexual act that might be worth $30 in Atlanta or Minneapolis is worth $90 in North Dakota. So if I'm the trafficker, I know there's a demand for people that want to purchase individuals for sexual acts, and I can make more money.
Oh my God.
That's so wild.
Those are some of the things that we see, like those differences.
Well, and what's crazy about human trafficking is that, like, okay, if it's like drugs or something like that, you do that once.
Yes.
But with human trafficking, you can keep doing it. So that's what also makes it just so hard, is because you can keep making money off of it.
Yes, you hit it exactly. Like
that's
something
it's
we
so
often
wild.
ask. You know, why would someone choose to sell a human being versus sell drugs? And it's that supply, right? I don't need that supply. And in sex trafficking, an average person is sold anywhere from 5 to 40 times a day. I mean, that's a big variance, but either way, 5 to 40, right?
Yeah.
And every time that transaction happens, that trafficker is making money.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I know. I always feel like I bring down the party, but it's also good to like just be aware, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I think the first time I heard like what Kirsten just said, that a drug transaction is one transaction, but human trafficking is multiple, like you were just saying. It was in the movie. Oh my gosh. I forgot the name of it. Did it come out about a year ago?
Oh, The Sound of Freedom.
The Sound of Freedom. And I think, it makes you sick to your stomach. I mean,
right. Yeah.
So I guess how do we combat that? Like like 31A Project is combating that, but like how can the community partner with you?
Yes. Yep. I think like one thing just that I think of right away is when we think about social media. So if people have kids or grandkids, whatever the case is, to be more in tune about what's happening online and to set boundaries, but also have open and honest conversations. Like right now, the average age of a gamer in the US is 36 and globally it's 41. So a lot of times when we're working with kids, they think they're talking to another 10-year-old when in fact they are talking to older adults. Because I talked about how trafficking can happen face to face, but we forget it also happens online. So just becoming more aware of what are the boundaries I have and what is social media safety. The other thing too is the average age a child receiving technology like an iPad is 18 months. So
oh my gosh, I didn't that.
I didn't either. Just read that in a study. And on top of that, the average time a parent spends talking to their child about social media safety between the ages of 2 and 17 is around 43 minutes in their lifetime, right? So it's like, okay, that's something we can do, right? Is like, let's have conversations and let's also be open and honest about this happening. The other thing too is for some of our survivors, like in rural communities, if we don't sometimes look like what people expect us to look like, we're not accepting, right? Like I grew up in a small town and I often tell our rural communities, let's say somebody comes into that house of worship, and just because they may look different, maybe it's having a conversation with them to see like, hey, what brought you here? Are there needs I can help you with? You know, instead of you don't belong here. Because a lot of our clients, they will say like, I sought safety in places like a house of worship or some, you know, smaller communities, but I was turned away because of how I looked or how I dressed. So being mindful of that.
Yeah.
I think when we travel, right, if we notice we're in a hotel where there is males coming and going out of a hotel room every 30 minutes, that's usually an indicator to us that, okay, something's obviously going on in that room. We should let the manager know so they could contact law enforcement. So just those little things of just being aware of your surroundings and having more open and honest conversations, I think could make a difference.
So with that, kind of like what services do you give people when they come to you, whether that is someone who has been a victim, or say it is like a parent who wants to know how to like have those conversations with their kids, like, what services all do you supply people with depending on whatever they're seeking?
Yes. So first and foremost, education is why we were founded. And so education on all levels. There was also a mandate that came through last legislative session that all 6th, 10th, and 12th graders have to receive education on human trafficking. And we were one of the agencies that received that grant. And so we're currently writing the curriculum for that.
Wow.
And so that is one way to get that information to kids. But then also if parents do call, we have resources that we can send them so that they can have conversations with their kids of that are appropriate. Because sometimes for parents, these conversations are also uncomfortable, right? So how do we have it so it feels more natural?
Right.
And then for the clients that we serve clients that are over the age of 18. They can be victims of labor trafficking, sex trafficking, and or sexual exploitation. And so what happens is they get paired with a mentor. That mentor helps them achieve different goals. Sometimes it's getting their GED, going back to college, going to doctor's appointments just because of that trauma, right? It can be very challenging to go to appointments. Then they help them achieve those goals, but then we have a support group that meets every other week too. And we just are launching our first therapeutic group. So that's a little bit different than our support group, but that's a weekly thing that they will be able to be involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick question on that curriculum. So it's not yet in schools? Are you guys currently
piloting? Oh, sorry. I should have let you finish the question. We are currently piloting it in schools. So it has to be approved through the Attorney General's Human Trafficking Commission because the grant came through their office. And so right now we are piloting it. So we have about 50 schools that we've been in so far. But then the next school year, all schools, which there's over 300 in North Dakota, will have to receive the education.
Okay. I guess I was curious too, because next year I will have a 10th grader. And so it will be in all schools next year. Okay. I think that's awesome. I think that's so needed.
Yeah.
And we're developing it so it's appropriate to their age level and just having honest and real conversations.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, because I think like some of those conversations, you don't want to almost like, I don't know, like make this like traumatic conversation happen like too soon. And I think that's where like a lot of things, like where a lot of questions I have about being like I want to be a mom someday. And sometimes I've thought about how do I have those conversations and make sure that with each child you're kind of figuring out how to talk about those things, because you do need to be aware of it. I do need to talk to you about this. That is like a responsibility I have as a parent, you know. But like how do you do that to make sure it's not this like just like you introduce it in this way that is going to be very like abrasive, very hard, very like, you know, I don't know, because it is really, that's like a really hard topic and we're so desensitized to it sometimes just because of like how much things are like sexualized in our culture. And it's
that's a really good point, because the other element to this too is like when we think about pornography, the average age of first exposure is between 6 and 12. And so what's good though is there's resources, like exactly to your point now of like, how can I have this age appropriate conversation where we didn't always have that? So I will say like that's one bonus we've seen in the past decade is just better resources.
That is so cool. And I guess too, like what would you say to any customers who are watching, anyone who's tuning in, like how can they get involved? How can they help your vision? How can they help your mission? How can they support you guys? How do they get educated? You know, like answering some of those questions.
So definitely within our website and our different social media platforms, we have a lot of resources. But if people want to volunteer and get involved, I encourage them to visit our website at 318project.org. And there's a form they can fill out that way. It can be whether it's volunteering for for events, or we also have our Bravery Backpack program. And those are backpacks that go to children who are victims of a crime between the ages of 2 and 17. So sometimes we have volunteers that just help put together those backpacks or write letters of encouragement to the kids. So different ways people can get involved. But I would say keep educating yourself. Like there's constantly things changing. Don't be afraid of it. Instead, being willing to lean in and learn.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to ask you, because you have a summit coming up in May, and I wanted to try to go this year, but I'm not going to be here now. Yeah. But I guess before I never really understood it's for everyone. Yes. But I was just going to have you speak a little bit to like who all should come to the summit and what you're kind of going to be learning there.
Yes. Thank you. With our summit, yes, I think sometimes people think you have to have a certain degree to be there. And we do offer continuing education to 14 different disciplines, but that doesn't mean that you have to have a degree, of a certain degree to go. We encourage anybody who wants to learn more about this topic to go. It is pretty diverse and complex with what you'll learn. It's anything from learning more about how does pornography respond or correlate with human trafficking, or how is technology used, or what does labor trafficking look like in the state, and then even hearing from survivors themselves. So something unique that we have at this year's conference that we haven't had before, there's something in the nation called the Survivor Caucus, and what they do is it's survivor-led, and they do a simulation where you actually sit down, there's 12 of you in the room at a time, and you get a character, but it's a real person's story, right? And you follow their journey from different encounters of going to the hospital or the school or law enforcement. And then you get to see what their outcome was from that. And then you debrief. So I'm kind of excited to be offering that this year because it's a hands-on activity. Yeah. But if you don't like hands-on activities, which is okay, there's so many other sessions that are going on where you can just be tucked away in the corner if you prefer to be that individual too. Yeah. But it's 2 days. And like I said, it's a lot of information, but at the same time, we encourage people, hey, if you need to go walk around, take a breather, do that. It's all part of the learning experience.
Yeah. And what were the dates for that?
Yes, May 19th and 20th. And we are back in Bismarck. This is our 6th summit. So it used to be known as the Bakken Human Trafficking Summit because that's where it started, was in the Bakken region. And we moved it every year, but it's now grown to over 400 people. And we have people flying in to the conference. So it's easier to be kind of closer to an airport. So this is our 2nd year being in Bismarck, and it's at St. Mary's High School.
Great. Yeah.
And how can people purchase tickets to it?
Yes. So visit our website at 318project.org, and there's a link that will lead you to our One Cause website. Much easier than me telling you the long One Cause website. But there's still plenty of tickets available, and there's a social we'll be doing at the 701 venue that night on the 19th from 5:30 to 7:30. But we just encourage people, if you want to know more and just really dive into this topic, it doesn't matter if you're just a member of the general public or you're law enforcement or you're a student that wants to learn more, this is an opportunity. We do say 18 plus though, so just because of the content, we always make sure that people are at least 18 and over.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and too, with all of those details, we will link the website and all the information for the tickets details for that summit below, and just how you guys can get more information. Another thing too that I wanted to mention, April 1st is when our spring menu is going to be launching. And alongside our spring menu, we are going to be doing a 31/8 Project Freedom Latte that we are going to be doing. So yes, so Stacy has a hot one and Dina has an iced one. And so it's a butterscotch inspired latte with a Biscoff cookie, which actually worked out perfectly because Stacy was even just saying she had some with her coffee this morning.
Yes, I'm definitely a Biscoff fan. So it spoke to my heart.
So that worked out so perfect. Yes.
Like I'm definitely going to need one every day.
Yes, so that's great. So any of the anytime you come in and just even buy a latte, any of the profit that we make from that is going to be going to Project 31/8 Project. Yes. All the profits going to be going there. So that's another way that you can just support. But yeah, I guess, is there anything else you want to say? Any other information, anything like that?
I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity to share more. And I do want to encourage people. I know this is a heavy topic. I get that, but just want everyone to remember that nobody can do everything, but everyone can do something.
Yes.
And just by learning more about this and educating and spreading the word, you are doing something about it. So just want to encourage people that we don't have to feel lost. There is hope in the darkness.
Yes. Yeah. And I do think even just like as a coffee shop and just, I mean, part of our vision for running 12 stones is really being so community focused, and to like teaching a community how to be a community and how to look out for each other too is like so important. So I think it's so cool too that we just got to have you on here to even just equip people in that way and bring awareness. I think that's probably the biggest thing for a subject like this, is just being aware.
Yes.
And then like as questions come up in yourself, like based on your situation, like if you're a parent or if you're younger or still in high school, like just figuring out of how to be more educated on it. And it's so cool that you guys do that. So yeah, so thanks for sharing.
No, and thanks for your support too. We're super excited about April and you guys including us in the work that you do too.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Like I said, come in April 1st, and we'll be having this drink all of April. So if you want to come in and just get one of those lattes to support, and then check out the link for all of the resources that we have in the summit going on in April as well. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.